The cafe sat on the corner of Maple and 3rd, a small place with wide windows and uneven wooden tables that bore the marks of years of elbows, coffee cups, and quiet conversations. Morning light spilled across the floor in pale rectangles, warming the air just enough to fight the early chill. Daniel Harris chose the same table every Saturday, the one near the window where he could watch the street while keeping an eye on his 6-year-old son Noah, who liked to press his nose to the glass and count passing cars. Daniel was a single dad, a role he had not planned for but had learned to carry with quiet determination. His wife had passed away 3 years earlier after a short illness, leaving him with a child who asked too many questions and a heart that still didn't know where to put its grief. The cafe had become their small ritual, a place where Daniel could pretend for an hour that life was steady and predictable. Noah swung his legs under the table, humming to himself while building a tower of sugar packets. Daniel stirred his coffee slowly, watching the steam rise and fade, thinking about the week ahead, work deadlines, school meetings, bills that never seemed to stop arriving. He liked the way the cafe smelled of fresh bread and roasted beans, how the soft clatter of dishes and low murmurs of other customers felt like a blanket around him. He had learned to treasure small comforts since losing his wife. Big happiness felt risky, like something that could be taken away again without warning. The bell above the door rang and Daniel looked up out of habit. A girl stood just inside the entrance, her dark hair pulled back into a neat ponytail, her eyes scanning the room with careful attention. She looked to be around 16 or 17, maybe older, though her face carried a seriousness that made her seem older than her years. She held a tray with a single cup of tea and a notebook tucked under her arm. What caught Daniel's attention, though, was the way she stood, balanced carefully on one leg, the other ending just above the knee. A lightweight prosthetic rested against the wall near the door, as if she had removed it for comfort. The cafe wasn't full, but it wasn't empty either. Most tables were occupied, some by couples, others by people working quietly on laptops. The girl hesitated, shifting her weight slightly, her eyes flicking from table to table. Daniel felt a small tightening in his chest, the kind that came when he sensed someone was uncomfortable but didn't know how to help. He watched as she took a few careful hops forward, then stopped again, her shoulders tensing as if she were bracing herself for something. She approached their table slowly, her movements practiced and steady. Noah noticed her first and stopped humming, his eyes wide with curiosity but free of judgment. Daniel followed his gaze and straightened instinctively, already preparing to move if she needed the space. The girl paused beside their table, her fingers tightening around the edge of her tray. For a moment she seemed to struggle for words, her lips parting and closing again as if rehearsing something she had said many times before. She began softly, her voice polite but edged with uncertainty. Excuse me, can I sit here? The question hung in the air, simple yet heavy. Daniel glanced at the empty chair across from him, then back at her. He saw more than just a request for a seat. He saw the courage it took to ask, the silent calculation she must have made before approaching. He imagined the look she might have received elsewhere, the awkward silences, the people who pretended not to hear. His mind flicked briefly to his wife, to the way illness had changed how people looked at her, spoke to her, sometimes avoided her entirely. He felt a familiar ache in his chest. Of course, Daniel said without hesitation, his voice warm and steady. He stood up slightly to pull the chair out for her. Please sit, you're more than welcome. The girl blinked as if surprised by how easily the words had come. She lowered herself carefully into the chair, setting her tray down with a small sigh of relief. Thank you, she said, her voice catching just a little. She stared at her tea for a moment, blinking rapidly, and Daniel realized with a quiet start that her eyes were shining with unshed tears. Noah leaned forward, studying her with open interest. Hi, he said cheerfully. I'm Noah, do you like sugar? I'm making a tower. The girl let out a small laugh, the sound shaky but genuine. Hi Noah, I'm Lily, and yes, I like sugar. Your tower looks very impressive. Daniel smiled, feeling something warm spread through him. Lily reached out and gently placed one of Noah's sugar packets on top of the tower, careful not to knock it over. Noah beamed, clearly pleased to have a new audience. For a moment the world felt smaller, kinder. They sat in a comfortable silence for a while, the clink of cups and the soft hum of conversation filling the space around them. Lily sipped her tea slowly, her hands trembling just slightly. Daniel pretended not to notice, giving her the space to settle. He sensed that whatever had brought her to ask for a seat was more than just tired legs. "I come here a lot," Lily said eventually, her voice quiet. "But I don't usually ask." Daniel nodded, understanding more than she might have expected. "I get that," he said. "Sometimes asking is the hardest part." She looked at him then, really looked, as if measuring the honesty in his words. "People don't always react well," she admitted. "Some stare, some move away, some act like I'm fragile, like I might break if they say the wrong thing." Daniel thought of the times. He'd been treated like he was made of glass. After his wife died, the careful voices, the avoidance. "People can be awkward," he said, gently, "but that's their problem, not yours." Lily's breath hitched and a tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. She wiped it away quickly, embarrassed. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to cry. It's just, you didn't even think about it. You just said yes." Daniel shook his head. "There was nothing to think about," he said simply. "It's just a chair, and you're just a person who needed a place to sit." Her shoulders shook as she let out a quiet sob, covering her face with one hand. Noah frowned, his small face serious. He reached across the table and pushed a napkin toward her. "It's okay," he said solemnly. "My dad says crying helps your heart breathe." Lily laughed through her tears, taking the napkin. "He's a wise kid," she said, looking at Daniel with gratitude shining in her eyes. Daniel swallowed past the lump in his throat, realizing that in answering a simple question, he had done something that mattered more than he'd ever expected. The rest of the morning unfolded in a way Daniel would remember long after. The cups were cleared, and the sugar tower had fallen. Lily stayed with them, talking softly while Noah chattered about school, dinosaurs, and his ambition to become an astronaut or a baker. He hadn't decided yet. Lily listened with genuine interest, asking questions, laughing at his jokes. Daniel watched her relax gradually, the tension in her shoulders easing as the minutes passed. It struck him how rare it was to see someone visibly exhale after holding themselves tight for so long. When Noah excused himself to use the restroom, Lily traced the rim of her cup with her finger, her gaze thoughtful. "You didn't have to be so kind," she said quietly. "But you were, and that changes things." Daniel leaned back in his chair, considering her words. "Kindness shouldn't be special," he said. "It should be normal. I'm sorry it hasn't been for you." She nodded, her expression serious. "I lost my leg in an accident when I was 10, she said, her voice steady but careful. "A drunk driver. After that, everything changed. Friends drifted away. Strangers stared. Teachers spoke to me like I was younger than I was. I learned to expect rejection before it happened. It hurts less that way." Daniel felt anger stir in him, not at Lily, but at a world that had taught her to lower her expectations of humanity. "You shouldn't have had to learn that," he said. "No," she agreed softly. "But then there are moments like this. Moments that remind me I might be wrong about people," Noah returned, announcing proudly that he had washed his hands for the whole alphabet. Lily smiled at him, and Daniel felt something shift inside him, a quiet sense of connection he hadn't felt in years. He realized that in opening his table to Lily, he had opened something in himself too. Grief had taught him to keep his heart guarded, but moments like this slipped through the cracks anyway. When it was time to leave, Lily hesitated again, the familiar uncertainty returning. "Thank you," she said, standing carefully. "For the seat, for the conversation, for not making me feel like a burden." Daniel stood as well, meeting her gaze. "You're never a burden for needing something," he said. "Remember that." She nodded, tears threatening once more. "I will," she promised. They said goodbye, and Lily left the cafe with a lighter step than when she'd entered. Noah waved enthusiastically until she disappeared down the street. Daniel sat back down, his coffee cold but forgotten, his heart strangely full. On the walk home, Noah skipped ahead, then turned suddenly serious. "Dad?" he asked. "Yes, buddy?" Why was Lily sad before? Daniel thought for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because sometimes people forget to be kind," he said. "And when that happens a lot, it can make you feel invisible." Noah nodded, absorbing this. "I'm glad you weren't forgetful today," he said matter-of-factly, then ran ahead again. Daniel smiled, blinking back tears of his own. He realized that the simple act of saying yes to a chair, to a stranger, had become a lesson for his son and a reminder for himself. Life had taken much from him, but it still offered chances to give, to connect, to heal in unexpected ways. Weeks later, Daniel would see Lily again, this time at a park bench, and she would smile at him with confidence instead of hesitation. They would talk again and again after that. But even if they hadn't, even if that morning had been their only meeting, it would have been enough, because sometimes the smallest kindness is the one that echoes the longest, reminding us all that we belong,